On Wednesday this week, Governor Dave Umahi of Ebonyi State in the southeastern part of Nigeria finally made it good his promise of defecting from the People's Democratic Party to All Progressive Congress. According to him, the move represents a personal protest against his former political party for failing to acknowledge or repay the undying loyalty of the people of southeastern geopolitical zone since 1998. Following his defection, Arise News host Charles Anyagolu had an engaging chat with the governor who spoke about the factors that helped him push out.
As most Nigerians know, Governor, the southeast region has always been the bedrock of the PDP, and your contention is that for all that support, the southeast has not been commensurately rewarded by the PDP, so you decided to defect to the APC, even though the southeast is not as well represented in the APC. I mean, did this decision happen suddenly, or have you been planning to defect for a while?
Oh, thank you very much. I can't say it happened suddenly. In 2015, when His Excellency Atiku Abubakar was to fly the ticket of PDP, the opinion of the Southeast people is that he was going to do, one, tenure if he won. And it was not publicly discussed, but I tasked Ohaneze that they should send delegation to find out from him if he was going to do a tenure, so that it would be the turn of Southeast. And in one of the meetings with His Excellency Abubakar Atiku and the governors in Port Harcourt, I asked him this question, sir, are you going to run for one tenure? He didn't answer that question. We left it there. So it was not something that I suddenly decided, but our people felt that in that 2019, which the decision to zone that ticket to the north was agreed, 2015 against 2019, it was the feeling of the Southeast people that it was their turn. But circumstances and situation made them to agree to support a candidate from the north, with the opinion that that candidate, should he, emerge victoriously, that, he was going to do one tenure. And so when things started unfolding from 2019 to date, and I read the handwriting on the wall, and I started warning. First was the plan to remove all the working committee. Notwithstanding that the working committee is just a tool in somebody's hand, and if that person asked them to move forward, they will move. But the person was also not satisfied with them, and they was willing to sacrifice them. But I can say that the working committee people worked, even though they are not, they have no freedom to decide anything on their own. And that is very dangerous for me. And should these people that, have worked hard be removed, there was no way Southeast would be considered. And so we started agitation, about 6 months back. We had meetings and all kind of stuff. And then it dawned on me that the permutations and combinations would not favor Southeast. That Southeast would not even be allowed to even do vice presidential candidate of PDP. And so I decided to let them know, should we not decide on where this ticket of PDP would go, that I would not continue to support PDP.
How can you justify crossing over to Mr. Buhari's party, the APC, as a way of redressing the perceived lack of an Igbo president?
You are misunderstanding this. My problem is with PDP, the party. There is a saying in our place that says that where you work, that's where you shop. That's why we have workshop. And so you cannot, wash your body in Sokoto and you start going to, Enugu to collect your address. My position is that this PDP we are talking about, I don't know about APC. APC in 2023 would have stayed 28 years. It is very obvious that we have not really supported APC in Southeast. But I'm talking about a place, the home, the community, that we have supported. We are part of the founding, members of it. In fact, our, elder statesman, Alex Ekweme, His Excellency, was the major breakthrough, for the birth of this PDP. And I'm saying, what is wrong? Don't we have anybody that since 1998, going to 2023, we cannot be asked to fly the ticket? It's an insult on the collective sense of the Igbos. It's very, very insulting. And nobody is talking to me to stay back that has been able to convince me. What is wrong by convening a NEC meeting to say, yes, we are talking of justice. Let us give Southeast, the opportunity. Whether we win or not, other people have been given opportunities and they did not win. But it will be on record. And I'm sure that you love to compete with your peers. There is nobody, when decision is being taken, the Southeast will not be consulted. The affairs of PDP in Southeast is being conducted outside Southeast, And somebody was talking, my good friend, I refuse to join issues with Wike because Wike is my friend. But Wike must know that he's a dictator. Wike must know that, one person cannot be called a crowd. And Wike must know that a lot of governors in PDP are very sad with him. He remote controls the party, and he said that I made my brother the vice chairman of PDP Southeast. I fund the Southeast, PDP from A to Z. And he has forgotten that, he single-handedly made Secondus the PDP chairman. He has forgotten that he wanted to also impose, one of his own as the minority leader in the House of Rep. He must know that there is nothing that happens in PDP without his authorization. He must know that he said that the PDP working committee members are beggars and armed robbers and the bribe takers. He has called them all kinds of unprintable names. And I've asked Governor Wike, who is my friend, so much. Let's not take on ourselves because it will be very dangerous for us to take on ourselves. So let us face the party. The party does not belong to him. And this is by no means personal. And he's demonstrating the dictatorship tendencies in him by taking on me, a fellow governor. And that is very shameful. So the truth remains that we are talking about injustice in a place we would have stayed 23 years in 2023. And so we are not yet talking about APC. It is somebody you have worked for so much that you deserve to collect your stipends. And that is what we are talking about. When we move to APC, we will be talking to them. As we support them, we'll be asking them, treat us like you are treating other zones. And that is equity, fairness, and justice. And I think it will be achieved.
But if, Governor, you don't get the presidential ticket yourself, because there's been a lot of speculation that you may well be aiming, or at least others might be aiming for you to get that ticket. If you don't get that presidential ticket and it goes to another Igbo man, for instance, how would you react to that? Would that satisfy your craving for justice in Nigeria?
If you understood me very well, you should know that I told you that I am not, doing what I'm doing because I want to fly the ticket. Every man is on his destiny. And so if another person gets this ticket, it doesn't matter where the person is coming from. If it's another Igbo man, I will be a very happy person because I can say that God has used me, to lay this foundation. This is very important. And so how can you say it must be you when God has not designed it for you or for this person or for this person? And so we cannot start with God and then we end up in the flesh. It's not, God forbid. So any other person could get the ticket, that God has destined, for that.
Now that you've jumped the political fence, as it were, what are your expectations from the APC?
Well, I believe that APC does more consultation. I believe that, and anybody can, controvert this, that PDP working committee is being remote controlled. And that is the truth, and that is very dangerous. And all the governors, they know that. I remember when I was sent to go and conduct election in Bayelsa, where there is a sitting governor, and somebody wants me to work against the sitting governor. I said, no, I'm a man of integrity. I will not work for the governor. I will not work for anybody. I work for God. I'll put my hands straight and clean. And somebody was not happy. And that is very unfair. You cannot stay in your state and then you'll be remote controlling other states. So I think APC has a better, formidable, party platform that they engage their members, Where there are two or three, even the tongue and the teeth, they do disagree. But a situation in which the working committee is being remote controlled is very unfortunate and it's not acceptable. And I want to tell you that unless that changes, you will see a lot of governors still leaving the party.
Right, you heard from Governor Dave Umahi there yesterday. But in the meantime, Governor Wike of Rivers State, who also was accused by Governor Umahi, has wielding an undue influence in the day-to-day running of the PDP, also spoke to Arise News, during which he put up a passionate defense. Let's hear him out.
It's unfortunate. I am not at the level of Governor Umahi. He said I single-handedly imposed secondus. That is an indictment on him. How did I? Secondus from my state, and he wants to run election. I came to him, please support secondus. I went round to all the governors, please second this man. All of them agreed, even including Umahi, that when Secondus was the National Organizing Secretary, that Secondus stood by them. And therefore, they are going to support Secondus. It does not tell you a ban, so which means I said, Umahi, you must support Secondus. And Umahi, who is supposed to be a governor of a state, without thinking, now went to the convention and said, Wike said, I should support Secondus. Wike flogged him. And he went and supported Secondus. You can imagine the kind of governor you are talking about. There's nothing wrong. And I won't apologize to anybody. If somebody from Rivers State wants to run an election, I have to go and talk to my colleagues why we should support this person. You have to say, no, we can't support him because from our records, he wouldn't be a good chairman. Now, he also said, I must control the NWC. At the same time, I said, they are armed robbers. They are this. The people I'm controlling, I'm the one controlling them, according to him. And the same person also saying that they are armed robbers. The point must be made, and one man who will tell you one thing today, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the night. I do not go say one thing this morning, in the night, I say different thing. Umahi has shown the kind of character he's made of. Let me just tell you one thing. He said, I said about the NWA. I never said so. What I said, and I want to stand by it, and I said what I said, and I will not run away from it. I said, some members of NWC are tax collectors. Some members of NWC are tax collectors. I said so, and that's the stuff some of us are made up of. I never said NWC are tax collectors. So He must understand that. All of us in PDP know the romance of Governor Umahi before now with APC. We had a meeting and he came out to say, yes, he had an agreement with the president that he would give president 5% or 40% as the case may be. Umahi cannot threaten me. He knows me too well. He cannot threaten me. He knows me too well. When the issue of Edose came up, I stood firm. Therefore, it requires everybody to sit together, to agree. And when all of us agreed, and we saw the success. But that affected us in Ondo State because we were not able to sit down and agree and ask Umahi, of all these elections that took place, whether anybody saw him in the campaigns, anywhere. So, for me, Umahi has the right to move to APC. It's his constitutional right. But we cannot, in all cases, Umahi to stand to Umahi to blackmail PDP that made him chairman of the party, deputy governor, and then you now realize that, look, injustice against service.
Okay, I mean, you heard both sides there. Dr. But I'll come to you first. Two very elaborate interviews we had yesterday, and both of them, elaborately stated their case. What's your take on this?
Well, I think it's most unfortunate that we have two governors of two states in Nigeria arguing on television, calling each other names. If they were discussing ideas about how they can work together, learn from each other to build their state and serve their people better, that would have been more elevating. But one governor saying, if he deals with me, it will be dangerous. Another one saying, oh, it's not well with him. That kind of thing, looking like, two, I don't want to say children, two young persons involved in an altercation. I don't find anything so enlightening in, what they have said. But there are certain things we can quickly look at. One, the debate is about, Southeast presidency in 2023. And Umahi says that's what he wants, and that he's leaving the PDP because he thinks that, the presidency should be zoned to the APC, to the Southeast. And he says he's not even sure whether the APC will do it, but he needs to put that idea on the table and defend it. Okay, fine. Every one of us, we've been discussing the possibility of Southeast presidency in line with the principles of fairness, equity, and justice. The question now is, how does the Southeast get that presidency? Is it by some power broker saying, oh, give it to the Southeast, or parties fielding Southeastern candidates and the Nigerian people deciding? Second, I think also that, look, this is not new within the PDP. We have had similar situation in the past. And in handling this particular Umahi case, I think that, the leadership of the PDP should also have a sense of history. You will recall that in 2014, when there is a crisis within the party, and some governors wanted the chairman at the time, Bamanga Tuko, to leave, and that was not well managed. Some governors already left the party, and then PDP became a minority party, as it were. The opposition took away some governors. Now, in the House of Reps, about 37 lawmakers also defected from the PDP. They went to this APC. It affected the fortunes of the party at the presidential level in the 2015 general election. So this kind of rhetoric that, if Umahi wants to go, good riddance to him. After all, he's entitled to his freedom of association. I would have assumed that the matter could have been handled differently. More so as these are friends. Umahi himself says, he's my friend. But, on television or the public domain is not where you come and resolve these issues. Three, of course, nobody can argue with David Umahi that he has a right of freedom of association. But if the party really wants to fight him, okay, is it possible for them to invoke Section 68 of the Constitution, which talks about what happens? In fact, the way the PDP has now handled the matter, they've even provided justification for him under that Section 68, because everybody has seen now that there's division within the party.
Yeah, there's division.
And your strongest defense is to prove that there is division. So, himself is in a safe place. Now, the fourth point, of course, is that whatever happens, the conversation about equity and justice in Nigerian politics is what is important. The energy also that David Umahi is devoting to this fight and that Wike is devoting to it, I hope they devote the same amount of energy and zeal to serving the people of both Ebonyi and Rivers State.
And develop. Somebody just sent me a message that I hope they do that same, have the same energy, you know, at developing the infrastructure left undone in the state, because somebody pointed a lot of infrastructure, especially in Ebonyi State, to me yesterday when you watched this.
Oh, really? Well, my take on it is, for starters, any political party or politician as an individual who think they have a particular zone on lock should watch this with keen interest. Anything can happen in politics. It does not do to take any zone for granted and you think you have their votes in the bag. He made a very interesting statement about giving 25% of the vote, which you might recall he actually denied doing last year. He claimed that was fake news, but in this interview, he actually confirmed. I thought that was interesting. Who gives 25% of the votes to the opposition party? I found that bizarre. But the other issue for me remains, well, Wike saying that, Governor Wike saying that Governor Umahi confided in him that he wants to be president of Nigeria. So here we go again. The president of Nigeria has spoken, and he has commended this action from Governor Umahi, saying it's selfless, it's not opportunistic, but apparently not. According to Governor Wike, he wants to be president. And this is what I was saying yesterday. I hate to sound cynical, but I don't believe a politician of this standing, of Governor Umahi's standing, will leave a party without any kind of deal, with no terms. You just risk everything jumping into what political obscurity, what for? So it appears that there's something in the offing, so we should watch out very closely to what APC will do. And as you said, the larger theme behind all of this is that Igbo presidency in 2023. And this has really escalated the conversation quite dramatically.
I mean, let's all watch this space. Like they say, 24 hours is a long time in politics. We'll see what will happen tomorrow on this. That's all we've got on News and Live. We'll take a short break. Then when we return, we'll have Roto's Michael Wilson, at this one, Morwa, Aaron Akirjala, give us all updates on Africa, global business, and COVID-19. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to the Rise Morning Show right here at the Rise News Channel. Roto Sodiri, over to you. It's your time for business in Africa.
Yes, good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Tundu, and good morning, Doctor. We're looking at a report from North Court Real Estate, a residential company that put up the cause and effects of the effects on residential retail real estate companies from the EndSARS protest. That's the violence that the violence following the EndSARS protest. So that's their report: cause and effects, impacts of recent vandalization on property, investment, and development. They have an impact map. The impact map shows the different areas with color coding that had damage. So light yellow across the north, didn't see that much damage, minimal vandalization, except in Kano, you can see some moderate vandalization. They're using, what is that, burnt orange or I guess burgundy. The darker colors, of course, are where you see significant vandalization. Lagos, of course, bottom left in the southeast. You got Kogi, Plateau, then Kaduna, Niger, and other states, Cross River as well, Adamawa. So that's, of course, telling you that this was damage that spread across large swaths of the country, which we, of course, have been reporting. Then we can take a look at this grade A retail mall damage. Grade A malls, I guess, are the malls that bring in the highest sales per square foot. About 14% of them were vandalized. It's significant because you can see an impact on Black Friday sales, which technically are more online, but still, as far as foot traffic is concerned, you will see an impact on sales for malls for Black Friday sales, and also as the Christmas season comes in, which is next month, there will these malls are going to be impacted. And then, very interesting here, mobility traffic. I just want to explain this very quickly. Google tracks your mobility and the amount of time you spend in certain locations based on the amount of time you spend connecting to Google Maps, Google Apps. So for instance, if you were to use Google Maps to go to a certain area and you use it frequently enough, it's essentially tracked. I, for instance, get a report. Google sends a report every month telling you exactly the areas you've covered and where you've traveled to. Some people might have some privacy concerns with that, but they essentially use this to look at the percentage change in visits to 3 areas. This was mostly in Lagos: residential, retail, and office spaces. So you'll see here with the residential area, this is from October 6th to the 24th. Keep in mind the NSAR shooting happened on the 20th. At the bottom of the screen, you will see that for the 20th, the 22nd, and the 24th, the bars are, the percentage increased 23%, 26, 23, 17%. So you had an increase in traffic towards residential areas, apartment buildings, gated estates during that period. We move on to the, I think it's retail is next now. Now, this is on the flip side. Look at this. It's all negative. From the 6th of October all the way through to the 24th. It's particularly prominent from the 21st, 22nd to the 24th. You can see in the negative region, the negative 70%, 67, 62. That is the percentage change in amount of foot traffic away from retail centers, which showed you how many people stayed away from retail centers following the vandalization and the destruction. Finally, this one shouldn't be a surprise. Office space, this one since the pandemic, since March. These figures have been negative since March, but again, they're just looking at October 6th to October 24th. Percentage change in mobility trends to office spaces. You can see, particularly from the 21st all the way to the 24th, the negative percentage figures away from office spaces. A lot of people have been working from home anyway, but it was particularly prominent within the period of the shootings and the violence. So that's basically them just using a pictorial representation of what the kind of wide-scale damage we saw and how people trended away from certain areas, essentially away from retail, away from offices, and more towards home. We move to digital training. There were 2 companies, I believe this is in our sister publication this day. 2 companies, I think one of them is called Poise Nigeria, and another one is a digital training academy that trained 37 youth in ICT skills. And they did this over the course of 12 months. And a lot was made about the training that these individuals received. I think it was in graphic design, also in marketing, digital training for marketing, coding, software. A lot was made about it, but the key thing here is that it was only 37 of them, just 37 youth, over a 12-month period. And when one takes a step back and thinks of, okay, for when it comes to jobs, when it comes to education, when it comes to improving the skills of our youth to get them into the 21st century, how much is the federal government going to have to spend? This was only 2 companies, 2 private sector companies in Nigeria that carried out this training for just 37. So, I mean, if you think about the number of kids that are out of school, the number of graduates that are looking for work, what kind of spending would you have to do in order to scale it across the entire country? I want to take an example here and look at a recording from Rahm Emanuel. Rahm Emanuel is the former mayor of Chicago. I think he was also an advisor to Barack Obama while he was in his first term. Let's take a listen to what Rahm Emanuel was saying about digital training.
People like at JCPenney and other retail, those jobs aren't coming back. Give them the tools, 6 months, you're going to become a computer coder. We'll pay for it. And you'll get millions of people to sign up for that. They are not going back to parts of the retail economy, and we need to give them a lifeline to what's the next chapter.
Their jobs in the retail sector in the United States. It suffered heavily. And you just saw that map, mobility map again for Nigeria. But less people going to retail stores, they've suffered a lot of losses. You're essentially saying we will pay for your digital training. That's the United States. Think of what that would have to cost in Nigeria. It's heavy.
I mean, great insight, Rotus. You've said it all. In fact, the COVID-19 pandemic has really done a lot of dents to the real estate sector in this country, and we can't deny that. Property prices are beginning to drop, even in some areas, because people can't have people to take up those spaces. I think one of the first big stories you brought as regards this was when Andela shut down their office, and that was really very bad, and they said everybody had to work from home. But I just want to point something out. Rotus, other companies did do those trainings, digital training. I know of Google. Google and Microsoft did do a lot of digital training this season. In fact, they opened up a hub for entrepreneurs, to be able to get access to trainings and some tools on Google that they can use to upscale their businesses this period. But it's a very particular report that you put out there And I want those, making laws as regards, ministries, making laws as regards property, housing, and all of that in this country, to take that report and really look at it. Because things like that account for the downfall in the economy. Very soon we'll still see third quarter reports, and we'll see the effect it will have on the economy. I'm sure definitely Nigeria will be in a recession, because the real estate sector, when you check line by line, our national GDP takes a sizable part of our national GDP. And if that is truncated, it goes a long way in affecting the growth and the economy of this sector. Indeed. So I hope all these reports you've churned out, people are looking at. You churned out another very good report. I think you presented another report set up by a company that talked about how people were collecting loans during the COVID-19 season, right, and how much they were spending on food and things. Right. I think those are reports that should form the framework of how we'll go ahead and start planning for the economy in the new year, when the vaccines finally stabilize things and the economy starts to look up, because the economy has taken a big dent, and something needs to be done quickly as regards it. And Ram Emanuel, former chief of staff of Barack Obama, was right. You need to go out there and train people on digital skills, because that's the future. That's the only way to go. It's the fourth industrial revolution. What we've always talked about, big data, machine learning, and the likes, right, is coming to stare at us in the face. The World Economic Forum talked about this too a couple of years back. The theme was on the fourth industrial revolution. It is here. What are we doing?
Exactly.
All right, we'll go straight to Michael Wilson. He joins us now from London.
Good morning. Sort of nervous trade really. Financial markets continue to range. They're sandwiched between this kind of wish for the COVID-19 vaccine-driven hopes of the future and the reality of what's actually happening here and now, which you've just really been touching on, which sees COVID-19 cases rampaging, no question about that, forcing even more stringent movement restrictions all the way around the world. And it's a tough place to be if you're forecasting markets, because usually what happens, at least there is some kind of relative decent information. There isn't any right now. But based on the 2020 that we've seen so far, we've covered quite close to the financial markets most weekdays, the financial markets' ability to look through what's actually going on is actually, and we need one more kicker, and it might be, as we search for yield in this kind of 0% world, it could come in the form of another, and there will be another pharma company announcing another successful vaccine, or it could be President Trump finally saying, enough of the scorched earth policy, I'm actually going to go. So given all those things, then we're looking at what happened as far as Asia is concerned. And there is a thing that traders do, it's called position reduction, and that speaks for itself, doesn't it? That's what's actually been going on. The Nikkei down about 1%, Kospi down about 0.5%, Shanghai Composite down a bit. Now, add to this, here's an interesting one. There's a conference going on as we speak, Asia Pacific conference called APEC. The Chinese president has just said that he's going to open up his supersized economy to import more high quality goods and services. And it's unclear whether President Trump will be actually speaking at this event. And as we know, he's previously castigated China for about the future of global trade. And they've been having a considerable trade war between themselves. Between particularly Chinese technology firms operating in the United States. So yesterday, then, this is a sort of US global recap, really. So markets undergo a particular period of introspection. Further positive news about the Pfizer vaccine set against the increasing economic damage of people actually not doing anything. So US markets slipped back for the second day in a row. Here's New York. Now, the mayor there actually closing schools now, and record infection rates in the United States, and also, just back to Japan, it is going to be a nasty northern hemispherical winter coming up. Late sell-off in the US presumably will translate into a slightly softer day here, and that's what will continue. All this needs to be offset by the idea of a workable vaccine, something that people actually can depend on. And we have seen nothing of that right now. It might take a year or two. I'm going to take you to Australia, interestingly. They call it the lucky country. They had a massive employment number. It includes their employment situation rose by 179,000 jobs. 97,000 of those were actually full-time. The headline unemployment rate remains steady at 7%, but the markets actually took no notice of this whatsoever, which is rather depressing in a sense, and it keeps pointing to the fact that when we look at markets, we tend to concentrate on the US, Europe and China. We should, in my view, be casting our net further afield. UK here, worst finance figures are going to be revealed next week. It's going to be, according to the Chancellor Rishi Sunak, a scary statement of what's happened. It's expected that the economy will have shrunk 11% over the year. That's the worst for many, many years. Actually, it's the worst economic situation in this country since the end of World War II. Defence spending, though, is up 16.5%, 16.5 billion in 4 years. That's a 10% increase. That's quite interesting, given that this country is looking at its overseas aid and so on, looking at what it's doing domestically, but this concentration of increased defence spending. But bear in mind, our defence forces, as I'm sure yours do, not just about fighting, but also in these days, delivering vaccines and monitoring the COVID situation. Sterling and Bitcoin. Now, this is interesting. Sterling continues to be buoyed by the fact that there's some sort of negotiation going on. Maybe the Brexit thing, it's within agreeing, and also within the distance of agreeing some kind of trade deal by the end of the week. Bitcoin, I take you to Bitcoin. It hit a 3-year high, just above $18,000 yesterday, and it looks like it's going to be retesting the 2017 levels. What people are actually doing, they're looking at this digital currency, and they're now, because the rest of the world is kind of thinking about digital currencies, then this is getting included in a few more financial portfolios. I would say I don't really understand Bitcoin. I do have a problem with something that lurches $1,000 every day up and down. You can look at it as a sort of financial flak jacket in lots of ways, like gold used to be. It will protect you if you're clever with it in days of complete risk. But as something, I have this idea, if I don't understand it, I don't get involved. I certainly would not get involved as an investor in anything going through that kind of volatility. That's the global view.
Well, Michael, I wanted to ask you about the EU Virtual Summit that's going to take place, that will start today. And one of the issues on the table is the EU Recovery Fund, the stimulus package. And Poland and Hungary are threatening to veto whatever decision may be taken. Do you think Warsaw and Budapest are just bluffing? And do you see the possibility of a compromise being reached? What do you think?
There will be a compromise, because if there isn't a compromise, then this experiment, which began many, many years ago, this European Union experiment, will seem to have clay feet. However, I did say at the time when this package was announced, A, it wasn't very much compared with the sort of problems, and B, the implementation of it is always a problem. It's all right coming up with these big figures, but how is it actually going to be applied to countries? And it's also, is it going to be in the form of grants, or is it going to be in the form of loans, which have a fixed repayable time? That's most important. And I think this is why these two countries are not very happy about it. Also, the majority of this money is going to go to Spain, Germany and France, and they might not get a look in. So again, the implementation of this around all these countries with different performing economies, different sizes of economies, is going to be very, very critical indeed. There will be some sort of compromise, and not everybody will like it, but that's what a compromise is.
Right, thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.
When you mentioned Spain and Germany in one breath, I just remembered 6-0. Pleasure to have you back. Still the morning show right here on the Rise News channel. We've got Adesuwa Moro here with us on COVID-19 update.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Dr. Bati, and good morning, Chundun.
Good morning.
Yesterday, another 600,508 people were infected with the COVID-19 globally, bringing the total daily number to 56,250,764 cases. Also, official count yesterday says at least 10,000 people died from the virus, bringing that total to 1.3 million deaths. Today, let's talk a bit more about the vaccines. Yesterday, we had some news that the vaccine by Pfizer BioNTech has now passed safety checks and will be sent to regulators within days. It also emerged that this jab is 95% effective. That's more powerful than previously thought. And for those aged 65 and above, the group most at risk, it is 94% effective. Now, normally, vaccines work better with general population than they do with the older population. But the reverse seems to be the case here. Well, at least 94% is a huge mark for those 65 and above. So this is really exciting results. From the full analysis of the clinical trials that were released, we now know there were 170 cases of infections in all, but just 8 of those were given the vaccine rather than the placebo. 10 people were also critically ill. Just 1 out of those 10 had the vaccine. There were no serious side effects. Only 2% of the 43,000 participants reported a headache, and 3.7% reported fatigue. Now, it could be fully approved in the UK as early as next month, but we still do not know how long protection will last. The distribution with this vaccine, this particular vaccine seems to be the biggest challenge yet because it has to be kept at -70 degrees, which is beyond the temperature of a conventional freezer. So that's that. But still speaking about vaccines, countries are rushing to secure doses for their citizens. And with this rush comes demand and supply challenges, prioritization and equity as the vaccine nationalism plot thickens. Now, according to available data, wealthy countries representing about 13% of the world population have already secured 51% of production of leading COVID vaccine candidates. An example is Canada. If we can have that data by the Duke University, which is a research institute. Yes, the example of Canada, because the country has so far secured 414 million vaccine doses, rather. That's more than 10 doses per capita for the country with 38 million people. Now, this number would be enough to vaccinate Canadians 5 times over, beating any other country in terms of confirmed orders of COVID-19 vaccines per capita. And reports are now suggesting that the country is in talks with government about a plan to donate its extra jabs to low-income countries through the WHO-backed COVAX. Yes, with vaccination, charity seems to be beginning at home. But guys, that's not the plan for COVAX. COVAX is to ensure that when vaccines are bought, they are shared equitably amongst countries. But in this instance, it seems as if the low and middle income countries are looking on, in awe. They're not part of this game yet. That's it on the screen there. The darker blue is for confirmed purchases, and the lighter blue are intended purchases. The 4th line there is for COVAX, and I think about the 6th one there is Canada, which has now secured 414 million doses, as I've said. Away from that, let's look at what has been happening on the African continent as regards COVID-19. Currently, there are almost 2 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Africa. Over 48,000 people have died, and 1.6 million people thankfully have recovered from the disease. Now, there are warnings of a second wave, and in the past few weeks, the numbers of daily cases have been rising gradually after we saw a decline in mid-July, according to the CDC, Africa CDC, and the WHO. Now, some countries are still on a downward trend, but there are countries with the highest average number of new cases per capita, and those include Morocco, Libya, Tunisia, Cape Verde, and Botswana. But there are also countries with populations, huge populations like Kenya, Egypt, Nigeria, Democratic Republic of Congo, who are also seeing increases. But others like Ethiopia and South Africa are witnessing a decline. Now, when you look at the deaths as well, the death rate per capita on the continent remains low. Nigeria, for instance, has not recorded a death in the last 4 days, and the numbers remain low compared to other parts of the world. South Africa is the most affected country when it comes to the number of infections and deaths, and there are many reasons that have been attributed to these low numbers we're seeing in Africa.
Yes, but I mean, there have been a number of studies as to why the case fatality ratio in Africa is lower than that of the global average, or, yes, you know, the case fatality ratio that you'll find in other parts of the world, contrary to all doomsday predictions about the prospects of Africa. And if you look at it, the countries in Africa that do not seem to have high numbers are the countries that are right within the, within the tropics. Yeah. And there was a study by the University of Maryland by scientists. They are indicating that the weather, you know, could account for why we have lower, relatively lower numbers in Africa, because countries that have lower temperatures, that have, you know, that experience a different kind of weather system could, you know, are the ones really having the very high numbers. It's also been argued that the population in Africa is largely youthful. Yes. You know, and because we have the majority of young people, even when they come down with COVID-19, they have stronger immune system. And then, of course, African countries, many of them have had to deal with some other kind of crisis, Ebola and all of that. The head of the African CDC is talking about a unifying response among African leaders. Well, he should know, you know, but I have not quite seen that evidence of enough solidarity among African leaders in terms of their response. But I think we're very lucky in this, as in many other things. Despite our fragile health system, we seem to be doing well. Now, Pfizer, when they first announced their vaccine, which they worked on with BioNTech, they said 90%. Then Moderna came and said, oh, 94.5%. Now we've seen Pfizer too has said, well, the efficacy rate of their vaccine along with safety is 95%. We expect that today AstraZeneca will also make an announcement. Maybe AstraZeneca will announce 97%. And next week, Pfizer will tell us the rate is now 98%.
It's a game of one-upmanship.
Yes, but in any case, all of this achievement with the vaccine gives us hope. Indeed. The last vaccine that the world came up with took 5 years, but this one has taken less than a year, and we hope that all the assurances the scientists are giving us, you know, will seem to come to pass. And as for Canada, other countries should emulate the example of Canada. Okay. Looking out for weaker countries. I think that's the spirit.